Hey class, happy week 2 of quarantine. So it seems like we're going to be here for a little longer. May 4th or May 5th for you guys is the new announcement. So I really hope you guys appreciate these assignments because honestly, it's going to help you a lot for the future if you decide to go into engineering. And I really hope you do. All the concepts we're learning, although there's going to be some syntax differences, the concept can be translated to any language. And today is a really important one. It's the beginning of loops. So hopefully you have assignment coding 4.0 open as you watch this video. You go through it. And for those novice folks in programming, this is going to be a really important lesson for you to listen to closely, take notes, and follow along because there's a lot to learn in this one. So why don't we get going? All right. So just like always, we're going to use our trusty friends at Online Compiler and learnc.com. I'm also going to encourage you guys to save all your codes. You don't want to have to go back to it and have to retype it. That takes a long time. And then lastly, there's a couple pictures that we're going to reference and then 2 problems. This assignment is going to ramp up the intensity a little from the last one. I think you guys will find this one a little more challenging. So if you're struggling already, it's going to be really important that you come to office hours Tuesdays and Thursdays, 9:30. So make sure to be with me. If you can't make it, we can schedule some other time, okay? Don't be afraid to ask. All right, so getting through it. So why don't we look at the problem? And actually, why don't we start some basics with for loops? So this is the structure of a for loop, and I want to make sure you guys understand what a for loop is. So the thought of programming is that we create a sequence of actions that are going to be executed, but a lot of times we want that action to be repeated over and over and over again. So this is where loops come in, and one of the most common loops is going to be our for loop. The next lesson we're going to learn about while loops. For loops work in a way that they allow us to go through a sequence of code a given number of times. So if you wanted to repeat a very specific number of times, like 4, 5, 6 times, a for loop will say, well, perform this action for 6 runs. And it has a very specific type of way it's written. Now, it doesn't in any way, and they reference this in the Learn C platform, you don't have to have this format, but it's actually the most commonly understood kind of dense way to format it. So I'm going to reference for C, and they have this example here, and I'm just going to use it in an example because I'm going to walk you through it in a little more detail because they kind of throw it at you without really going into details about it. And so I wanted to use this as an example of what we're going to get into. So what they're trying to do here is they've created an array that has 10 numbers, 1 through 10. And what they want to do is they want to sum each of these values, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus 5, so forth. What does that equal when I add up each of those individual values all together? So why don't I take this code, I'm going to copy it, I'm going to come here to my code, and I'm going to just go ahead and paste it right in there. So to start, in the last assignment, I asked some folks to go ahead and say, hey, what's a faster way to assign each of the values for an array? Some of you were doing like array 1 equals 2, array 3 equals 5, array 5 equals 10. You could just do them all at once. And so what I did here is it initiates an array, specifically that's going to have integers in it. It assigns all 10 within the braces and semicolon. Then it creates an int sum, which is equal to 0. So it's setting the value equal to 0. So it's declaring it and it's assigning it. Then it creates another variable, int I. Now, this right here, I also want to make clear that most folks will go ahead and declare it in here. So what they do is within the for loop, they're declaring the integer I. Now, I and j are what we call counters. And so if you ever hear me say counter, it doesn't have to be an I. It's just kind of the most common understood value. It means that I is the number of iterations that we're going to run through. So right now, the value of the iteration is 0. And so the way that a for loop works is the following. And I posted a picture in there. For, that's our keyword. Int, so we're declaring the variable. We're naming it. So in this situation, they named it counter. I named it I for iterations, equals 1. Now you can assign the value as 0 or 1, and you need to be mindful of what that value should be dependent on your scenario. Counter is less than or equal to 10. So what it's saying is it's almost like a while loop that you're going to see later. The counter currently is equal to 1. While it's less than or equal to 10, run this code. As soon as this condition is not true, so as soon as the condition is not true, so it's going to run inside the loop, then the condition will be false. Eventually, I will be greater than 10, and then stop the code. This plus plus, I want to go ahead and describe soon enough, but why don't we jump back into it? So what I said is int I equals 0. Well, I is less than 10. So I is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I just ran 10 iterations of this because I started at I is equal to 0. If I had started at I is equal to 1, then I would have only run, well, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I only would have run 9 iterations. Why do I say only 9? Because as soon as I is equal to 10, well, 10 is not less than 10, false, don't run the code. So you have to be mindful of what you set I as. You got to be mindful of what your condition is that is true or false. So the structure of a for loop is first you declare your counter. In this situation, I called it I. You could call it anything you want. You set a value to it. And you could do that ahead of time. They did that in their example. Then you second semicolon. Then you determine how many iterations you're going to run. So you have to be mindful of, you got to think of how that works, right? So this is going to be 10 iterations because I'm starting at 0. Then it's I plus plus. Now, for anyone that hasn't done coding, this can be really confusing. So I want to make sure to describe kind of several operators that are used in here, plus plus and plus equals. What does plus plus mean? Well, plus plus is a simple way of saying this, that at the end of your loop, you're going to go ahead and say I plus 1. And so that's somehow been shortened to I plus plus, but really what that equals is I plus 1. And so I'm going to say, well, that doesn't mean anything to me, right? Well, right now, the value at the very start is equal to 0. What a for loop does is every time it runs, it then references that third little section of your code, and it adds 1 to the value of I. So run the code, perform the action, then 0 plus 1. Because the value of I right now to start is 0, so what am I going to assign it? What is it going to be now? It's going to be 0 plus 1. The next time it runs, what is I equal to? It's equal to 1. So I is equal to 1 plus 1. It's now equal to 2. The next time it runs, it's 2 plus 1. It's 3. The next time it runs, 3 plus 1, 4. And eventually it's going to hit that number 9. Still be true, run inside the sequence, plus 1, 10. False, jump out of code. So the way we think of a for loop is the following, and I'm going to go ahead and put this brace at the bottom. So I like to kind of join I'll take out the comment for now. So what this is saying is, while I is 0, while it's less than 10, better said, then run the code within it. So whenever you see I plus plus, that really means each time you run it, add 1 to the I value, okay? Now, we're going to jump into this because this plus equals is really a new concept. What does plus equals means? That is the same thing as saying equals sum plus array. So again, go back to what it was. And I'm going to put it in the comments. Plus, actually, I'll just type it. Sum plus equals array I is the same as sum is equal to sum plus array. Now, I know it could be really confusing what that means because you're like, how does sum equal sum? So you have to remember, this is assigning the value. So we're saying the new value of sum is going to equal the old value of sum plus whatever array is equal to. So I think a really good way to think of this sequence is I'm actually going to cut this down. I'm going to say this is 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to cut it down here. I'm going to go ahead and cut this down to 4. And then, you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to run this code now, and I think it'll work. I don't think I messed up anywhere. Sum of the array is 10. So what did it do? 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this printf, and I'm going to have it printf each time the code is run. Okay. So how many times should it run? Well, it should run 4 times, and it should print 4 different lines. 1, 3, 6, 10. So where did that 1, 3, 6, 10 come from? Well, it comes from here. So I'll put comments down here, just so I can have a sequence box. Something else. Okay, so the first run, I is equal to 0. Well, sum is equal to 0 to start, right? That's what we defined at the top if you look at the code. So the first time it runs, it's going to say sum is equal to 0 plus array 0. What's the value of array 0? It's 1. So then I is now equal to 1 because it looped back up. What did it do? It said 0 plus 1, right? So now, which is equal to 1. So now, oh geez. So now sum is equal to sum, which is what, 1 plus array, what are we on? Array 1. Array 1, if you look at that box, array 1 is 2. So what's that going to equal? Well, it's going to equal 3. Now I is equal to 2. And sum is going to equal 3 plus I, what are we at? I2, which is 3, which is going to equal 6. Now I is equal to 3. Sum is equal to 6 plus I3, which is 4, which equals 10. I equals 4, false, end code, right? So you're going to need to know this concept. Why? Because in problem number 1 of the assignment, whoops, I challenge you with the following. I want you to use code in a for loop to create to solve for factorial 8. I'm going to tell you the answer is 40,320. And at the very end, I don't need the printf every single time inside the loop, right? So what I mean by that is this printf could be outside just right before the return, right here, just like I had it before. What I want you to do in this code is to solve using a for loop in a similar fashion as what I did. I also want you to use the sequence times equals. And so what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to rewrite this code, and I can tell you that it's going to give me the same answer. I'm going to say sum plus array I. That's all it's doing, right? So I'm going to run this. Oh, oops. I didn't actually end this code. There we go. So I got exactly the same thing, because you got to remember that when I say sum plus equals array I, what we're really saying is sum is equal to sum plus array I. It's a shorthand way to do code. Same with this one. Any experienced coder will know that they just say I plus plus. That means I equals I plus 1, which means each time add 1 to the value of I. That's the way we're actually going to ever reach, the I is less than 4. Otherwise, if you don't have that, if you just say I is I, then I will always equal the same value if you're never adding values to it. I think it's going to be really important that you see office hours if you're struggling with this concept. I also have a bonus challenge, and this minimum number. I give you some kind of help here, but I could talk forever about this for loop. I really want you to be involved in office hours. Come see me. Otherwise, good luck with it. It's okay to collaborate, never to cheat or copy code. Don't share your code with anybody. Want to make sure to make that disclaimer. But discuss it, talk about it, and make sure to challenge yourself. And I hope you guys really enjoy this. You guys have 7 days to do it, so it is a long time. Work on it every day a little bit, read up on it, and then good luck with it. All right, take care, folks. Hope you guys are doing well.